Fire them up. There you go. Band's playing. That means it's time for the original Bama Tailgate Show with Andrew Bone. I'm Mick Gillispie. Our show is brought to you in part by newlifeart.com. Promo code Bama Tailgate. So if you want to get one of those prints like Bone has, and I've got here in my studio, you want to pimp your man cave, Bama Tailgate. Alabama and South Florida, huge matchup on the road for Alabama, 32-point favorite against the Bulls. How weird is this matchup, Bone? It's got to be recruiting. That's why we did this, right? And let me tell you this, too. Andrew Bone, part of On3 and Bama Online. Great to see you, brother. This has got to be a recruiting matchup.
I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, Alabama certainly, has recruited that area pretty well. Tampa, what's around there, Bradenton, Florida, home of IMG Academy. So, there's a lot of top talent in the Tampa area. You look at a lot of these games in the past where Alabama's gone and played these neutral site out of conference games, whether it's in Dallas or Atlanta, and those are those have always been recruiting hotbeds or turned into recruiting hotbeds for Alabama. Over the last several years, and Tampa, I mean, South Florida, I mean, the whole area. I mean, it's a place that Alabama is going to continue to recruit, and they're going to continue to have success. You're obviously having some more competition down there than maybe in years past with Florida State, with their success with Miami. I think Florida obviously with Billy Napier, but I think with this NIL era, we've seen some of those programs been able to land some exceptional recruits, and they've all obviously got great recruiters down there as well. But Alabama wants to continue to have success in the Tampa area. They had success there last year, getting Keon Keeley. This year, Joseph Ionata out of Calvary Christian Academy, who's also going to be at the game today. You got also Jameer Grimsley out of Tampa Catholic, top 100 defensive back, is a top target for a lot of schools still, including Florida. Florida playing Tennessee this weekend. Instead of going over to Gainesville for that game, he's going to be over at Raymond James for the game for Alabama between South Florida. Another big target, Solomon Williams in Tampa. Carolwood Day, one of Alabama's top targets in this 2024 recruiting class. Obviously, the IMG guys, they're always going to be targeting those players. But I mean, I think it's recruiting purposes. You're going to see South Florida fans there. Obviously, you're going to see Alabama fans there. But I think you're going to see a lot of people in the area who just want to come out and see that game because it's pretty rare for Alabama to make their way to Tampa to play in a college football game, especially during the regular season. So you're going to get a lot of people out there that aren't necessarily fans of either program. They just want to see the Alabama Crimson Tide.
Andrew Bones with Bama Online, and obviously part of the On3 Sports Network, and he's been coming on this show for a long time. Always great to see you, Bone. You and I both are proud Alabama alumni. That was a tough game on Saturday. How did recruiting go? I know the game didn't turn out the way that we wanted it to against Texas, but what about the recruiting part of it? How did those visits turn out?
People always think that, a loss is, really going to affect your program. A bad loss is going to affect your program. And I don't necessarily, I know, trust me, I'm in it. I see all these guys, all these people on Twitter, on our message boards, out in the community, they're upset. And, they're upset about the loss. They're upset the way Alabama lost. It's a 10-point loss at home. I mean, it's been a long time since something like that happened. But listen, Texas is a great team. They're a college football playoff contender. There's no doubt about it. They've recruited well. They've recruited the transfer portal well. They've got great coaches. They came in, not scared. And I think Alabama obviously got some things that they can work on. But at the end of the day, there are things that they can work on. They can improve on, and they can get better, and they could potentially, you line them up against Texas one more time, let's say in 10 weeks, might be a different story. You just never know. So I guess it'll be a little bit longer than 10 weeks, but we could potentially see a different Alabama football team. There's a lot of talent on that team, and I think recruits, Alabama fans, Alabama coaches, Alabama players, they're going to be more disappointed about the loss than recruits are. Don't really care. Recruits see a great atmosphere. They're around a lot of a lot of other potential players that they're going to play with at the next level. But they're also seeing potentially a way for them to come in and make an impact, to get on the field. So, and that's what Alabama's going to be selling them on. Coming in, trying to contribute early in their career, telling them, hey, we need help here. We need help there. Why don't you come in and, be that difference maker for us? And, that's what a lot of recruits want to hear. They want to hear that they, have an opportunity to come in and play. They don't, for years, the funniest thing about Alabama recruiting, schools recruiting against Alabama used to be, you're not going to play at Alabama for 2 or 3 years down the road. A lot of times that was a negative impact on some of those kids just because they're like, well, this school's telling me that I'm not good enough, to play at Alabama. Well, I'm going to go and prove to them that I am. Now, Alabama's saying, oh, they don't have the same type of players that they do. They're going downhill, all this stuff. So that's what these opposing coaches are now telling recruits, hey, they're not as deep. They're not as talented. They're not going to win national championships. Well, why don't I go and help them do that? And I could potentially make a contribution early in my career there. So talking to all these different recruits that were in Tuscaloosa this past weekend, myself and Joseph Hastings, it was all positive. I mean, it was all positive. You didn't hear anything negative. Talking to different commitments, talking to top recruits who are in town. Jordan Seaton, who's one of Alabama's premier offensive line targets in this class, made a surprise visit to Alabama this past weekend. He raved about his visit, excited about trying to get back up for the Tennessee game next month. George McIntyre, number 2 quarterback in the country, also in town in that 2025 class. Juju Lewis, who's the number 1 player in the 2026 class. Jakeem Stewart, who's the number 2 player in the 2026 class. Talked to both of those guys on Wednesday night, and they had nothing but great things to say about their trip, and they certainly expect Alabama to continue to have success, a lot of success moving forward. One game not really going to change their opinion. Now, I think what we're all obviously going to have to watch is how's Alabama going to respond. Everybody expects Alabama to win against South Florida. They're 32-point favorites. Of course, they're expected to win. What are they going to do the rest of the SEC schedule? Against Ole Miss, against Arkansas, against Tennessee, against LSU.
Yep.
Those are the games that are going to define Alabama's, the rest of their season and, potentially, the next year or so on the recruiting trail, how they respond, because everybody's telling them right now that they're done, that the dynasty's over. Nick Saban should retire. All this stuff. It's
a lot of criticism.
And Nick Saban embraces it. And
I know
we saw that when Alabama got beat by Ole Miss, back-to-back years. That and I think Coach Malzahn was supposed to be the guy that ran Nick Saban out of the state of Alabama. I mean, we just have heard, Ed Orgeron was the new king of the SEC West. I mean, just so on and so on.
That video I used to play.
Look who's still around. And just because they lose a game by 10 points doesn't really, I don't think it's going to change much. I mean, Alabama. They're still going to recruit as well as they do. And let's just see kind of what happens over the course of the next 2 months. See what happens, because this could easily
maybe this lights the fire, Bone. Maybe this lights the fire. Well, Bone, always great hanging out with you. And let me remind you, Bone, you're a family guy. You like to do fun stuff. Tuscaloosa, visit Tuscaloosa. You got lots of stuff going on there. The Tuscaloosa Farmers Market takes place every Saturday at the Riverfront Market, 7 to noon. You got the Tuscaloosa Civil Rights Trail, which is a self-guided tour with now 18 stops around Tuscaloosa. Bone, you're a big concert guy. Me too. Tuscaloosa Amphitheater and Druid City Music Hall, and some of the best barbecue in the country. Visit Tuscaloosa.com. And when we come back, we'll talk more Alabama and South Florida. The tailgate show, the Bama Tailgate Show, rolls on right after this.